Good morning. Welcome to this week's IGTV. Don't talk to me like that. Do you have a teenager that uses the tone with you, or everything is defensive and angry, and you need to know how to teach them some respect? And what kind of consequence do you set in that situation anyway? Well, today we're going to talk all about that, and I'm going to give you the insight to change the way you look at this that will actually get you more respect over time than setting consequences ever will. Don't think it's possible? Well, stick with me. My name is Allie Payne. I am a certified life coach, certified relationship systems coach. I've been working with parents of teens for the last 15 years to help them end the emotional blow-ups, stressful silences, and painful disconnection to create relationships based on trust and respect. I am a former troubled badass teen, spent decades healing myself, and also a mother of 2 sons. So everything I bring to all of my videos and programs is based on personal experience and backed by science. All right, if you are watching on Instagram, welcome. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit subscribe, give me a follow. Okay, let's talk about this. Your teenager gives you the tone. Now, it comes out of nowhere, seemingly for no reason. You can be as syrupy sweet as you think you have ever been in your entire lifetime. You're like dripping with carnival candy sweet, so sweet. And yet your teenager is sassy and disrespectful to you with the tone. Can I get in a hell yeah? Can I get a hell yeah? You know, I know what my teens went through this. I get it. Let me explain a little bit of context for you so that you understand why this is happening and can start to separate out that experience of taking this so personally. And what happens when you do, okay? So let me describe to you what happens. Tell me if this sounds familiar. So you're being like super syrupy sweet. Your teenager snaps or is like sharp and snarky with the tone at you, okay? You feel like resentful and somewhat rejected. Like, hey, I'm being really nice to you. Don't be like that to me. So you get resentful and then you retaliate to try and control them. They feel controlled, shocker. And so they do more of the same. And so you get more resentful and you get more into retaliation and you try and control them. And they feel controlled, so they do more of the same. Do you see where I'm going with this? Okay, so we're just gonna like unpack that circle. We're in fact just gonna get right off of that unhealthy relationship wheel. We're just going to get right off of it. Okay. All right. So let me talk about the Daniel Siegel. If you watch any of my videos, I know they start them all like this. Just stick with me. This is really important for context. This is the Dr. Daniel Siegel hand model of the brain. Okay. I'm not trying to do puppets here. I'm trying to talk to you about the brain. Okay. Stay with me. This is the brain stem. Okay. This is the brain. Oops. Like this. Okay. This is the brain. So this is the upper brain. This is what a brain looks like when it's in a regulated state. Like hopefully you right now with me here, regulated, okay? This is the amygdala, the emotional center of the brain, the very raw part, a part where a lot of our unconscious memories are held, okay? And in a regulated adult brain, our intellectual brain is keeping that nice and safe, not shut down. Like we still have emotions in a regulated state, okay? But it's like we're emotionally regulated, okay? Here's the teenage brain. Stick with me. This is the teenage brain. Why? You notice what just happened here? See this really raw emotional part? It's not covered. It's not fully covered. Because during the adolescent years, the teenage brain goes through the second and final growth phase of our lifetime. So what happens is their brain is going from a simple computing system to a very complex computing system. It goes it's called pruning and myelination, is it's densifying. So it's growing, physically growing all new hardware, and it's writing all new software at the same time. Okay? It's a circus in there. Yeah, it is. At the same time. Now, it's important to give you this context so that you understand the tone and the snarkiness. So please stay with me. During that time in adolescence, okay, their brain actually rewrites their sense of identity. So everything they knew about themselves is being rewritten, even the good stuff. Have you ever watched Disney's Inside Out with Riley? If you haven't, please just go watch the movie. Like, it's not just a cartoon, it's an actual real thing. I remember myself as a child. I loved who I was. I liked who I was. I liked my life. I was pretty happy. Things were easy. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I became a teen and I was angry and I was so insecure and I was scared and I didn't know why. Nobody tells teenagers why. Nobody. So when they're going through this time in their brain, a more complex adult version of identity is being created in their brains, which is partly erasing some good stuff they knew about themselves in order to create a more complex version. At that time, and physiologically, this is around 13 to 18, okay, it depends on the child. At around 13 to 18 years old, because of this process, their self-esteem also can drop up to 30%, and they become highly susceptible to comparison, criticism, and judgment. Highly susceptible. Even if that's not what you are saying or doing, that is what they are hearing as a function of the physiological changes in their brain. Okay? Tell me you heard that part. Even if that is not your intention or not what you are doing, that is what they are hearing because that is a function of the physiological changes in their brain. Okay? Now, bear with me for 1 second. Okay? I know I keep saying that, right? Like I need to stop saying that. I'm just so passionate about this information getting out to you and your teenager. I hope you watch this with your teenager or send this to your teenager and let them watch it. Okay? Most teenagers message me and they tell me they feel like they're broken, they're going crazy, and they're terrified because their brain is literally rewriting itself, and they, again, because of the natural drop in self-esteem, the new and developing sense of identity, they're terrified in there. It is a dark, scary neighborhood, and they're in there alone, and no one told them that their Disney movie was going to become a horror movie for a short time, and that it was normal. Nobody told them this. Nobody told them. Yeah, of course it can start younger. It's the physiology of the brain depends very much on the person, the child, and the hormones when their pituitary gland explodes, and so when all those physiological changes go on. Now, let me take you to that moment for 1 second when your teenager is like giving you the tone. Okay, so imagine that for 1 second. You're doing whatever you're doing, and your teenager is giving you the tone. And you're like, you can feel your Sigourney Weaver alien coming up, being like, and you're going to come at them because you're like, oh no, you won't talk to me like that, sister or mister, whatever. You won't be talking to me like that. Oh, excuse me. Who do you think you're talking to? Excuse me. And we have this impression as adults, as parents, that the moment our teenager is sharp, snarky, defensive, blamey, has the tone, our responsibility as an adult is to say, whoa, no, sister, mister, you will get back in line and you will be respectful right now, or I am being a bad parent. Let's think about this for 1 second. Are you really, this is the story that came from how we were raised in usually more of an absolute authority, very low emotional intelligence version of parenting. Not because our parents are bad or stupid. They just weren't given all of this information that we have now. So your teenager hits that line where they're back talking or they have the tone, and your thinking is, well, I am a good parent. See that little story there? I'm a good parent of a good child, so that's not going to happen. So I need to immediately consequence you so that you understand what respect is, because I have zero tolerance for that. Okay, well, so there's a couple things wrong with that story. First is that that's assuming, that is 100% assuming that your teenager is making a conscious choice to do this. The second thing is that's assuming that your teenager is perfect, which I'm sure you are too, and never gets to a state of emotional dysregulation. Remember, this is an adult regulated brain. This is a normal teenage brain. Their amygdala is raw and half covered because their intellectual upper brain is not fully formed, and it lacks impulse control and emotional regulation. And if you were a turtle with a half-formed shell, do you think you would live your life a little bit sharp and scared of everything? Because your life was literally depending on the fact that your shell wasn't formed? Like, you probably would hide under rocks, which crabs do when they're getting new shells. And you would be really angry and upset if anybody came at you or perceived that they were coming at you because you're scared. Okay, so your teenager isn't perfect. So let's just say that right now, because if you're here with me right now, then you're part of the Imperfect Parenting Club. I'm far from perfect. I am emotionally dysregulated and I'm emotionally regulated, and I make bad decisions and I say things I didn't mean, and I clean up my mess when necessary, and I try my best to always learn from that. Right? Okay, now let's go for a second. Take your teenager out of the picture for 1 sec. Imagine when they were a toddler. Okay? Imagine when your teenager was a toddler and they were learning to walk. Okay, just bring that to mind. Your gorgeous child, little wee thing, they were learning to walk. And they didn't get it right the first time. They didn't get it right the second time. Ugh, like it was awful. They had bruises on their forehead. They had black eyes. They had scrapes on their faces. They had scraped up knees, elbows, hands, the whole thing, because every time they tried, they failed. They fell. And it was messy. And it was hard. And day after day, you had to constantly do what? Did you consequence your toddler because they didn't get walking right the first time? Or the second time? Or even the third time? Did you say to your toddler, what is your problem? I model walking for you every day, all day. I walk around you walking. I'm showing you how to walk. Why can't you get it? What is your problem? You are going in a timeout, mister or sister. You're going to go in a timeout until you can figure this out. Would you have consequenced your toddler because they didn't walk right the first, third, or 10th time? And then when they came out of that consequence, then do you think that they would be perfect at it? No. What you did when your toddler was learning to walk was every friggin' day, 100 times a day, you picked them up and you held them when they got it wrong and got the goose egg on their forehead. And you said, I see you're trying. I know this is hard. I love you. and you had to constantly interrupt your day because you had to keep picking them up, and you would pick up their gorgeous little hands and you would help them stand up on those cute little chewable feet, and you would be like, I got you. Try again. Try again. Okay, not quite that time, but try again. Your teenager's brain is going through a massive renovation. And if you're going to expect your teenager to be emotionally fully regulated, which most adults aren't, okay? Most adults don't do that, don't know that. But you're expecting your teenager to do that when their brain is going through the same growth and understanding phase, but because it's an emotional and intellectual growth phase that you can't see, you're like, hell no, we are not having that here. We do not do respect like that. I am a good parent and you are going to be a respectful teenager, so no. Like, I get where you're going. I absolutely honor your desire to raise a respectful, successful adult. High five. I love that's why you're here. I get it. But just because that teenager in front of you can now walk, and you taught them to walk, they can dress themselves, they can feed themselves, they know how to use a toilet. Sometimes they care about hygiene. They're relatively independent, and you don't see the massive growth that's going on in their head that has literally taken away what they liked about themselves and has opened them up to feeling literally afraid all day, every day, questioning everything around them. They are so susceptible and insecure to judgment, criticism, and comparison, such that they come at you with a tone and they're sharp. It's not about you. It's not about you. This is them trying to learn to drive this new device when no one told them this was happening, no one told them what it was going to be like, and nobody is picking them up back on their feet and saying, I know this is hard. You've got some bumps and bruises. I believe in you. Try one more time. Nobody's saying that to them. So the next question I get from parents is, so I just let them get away with it then? Oh, so I just let them do it? No. But consequencing will disconnect. It feels shaming and isolating to your teenager when they are already in that dark and scary neighborhood alone and don't know where all the controls are yet. So instead, do this, okay? This is a boundary for the tone and the back talk. Understanding everything else I've told you. It's not personal. This isn't about you. So you can also stop trying to be like syrupy sweet and inauthentically, disgustingly, perfectly sweet. Just stop. Okay? You do you. Be authentic. Be real. Conscious, but be real. Okay? And if your teenager comes at you with the tone, you say, hey, sounds like you're frustrated. Is there something that you want to talk about? Or is there something you want to share? Or you validate for them the fact that they are literally living in a state of fear, which is the first part of hijack to fight or flight. They literally live there. Like up to 80% of the time, I'm totally making that stat up based on an adolescent psychologist colleague that I have who tells me this information. Their brain is almost always hijacked in a state of fear. So when the world feels scary and sharp and they don't know who they are and they don't know who you are and they don't know how to be in relationship with you, what they need is that loving encouragement. They need kindness and compassion. So you say to them, so you start to validate and say, hey, it seems like you're a little upset today. Is there anything you want to share? You don't get hooked up and take it personally that it's about you, because it's not about you. It never was. You say what you need to say respectfully, and if they come at you with a tone, then you could say back to them, is there something that I said that has you feeling attacked Or is there something I just said? It sounds like you're feeling attacked. Is that true? Check it out. Don't assume. Check it out. This happened with my son for 2 years. 2 full years. He would come home from school every day, and I would say, I work at home now, and I would say to him, hey, hey, good to see you. How are you doing? That's it. Like, hey, just some basic comment. And I would get a snap. I'd get a snap back. And I'm like, hello? Is somebody hearing what I'm not hearing? Because I am not getting the memo, apparently. For 2 years, every now and then, I would say to my son, hey, is there something I'm saying that has you feel attacked? I'm just curious. It seems to me like you're feeling a bit defensive, and I'm just checking in with you. For 2 years, you guys, 2 years, he said, I don't know. 2 years, he couldn't answer it. He didn't know why. Do you know what I wanted? Do you know what I know now that I wish I would have known then? Because of the renovations going on in their brain, okay? Massive renovations. They are in a wildly inefficient computing system. They're stuck there. They're trapped there, okay? They get overstimulated from school very easily because their brain is on high alert because they're living in fear, comparison, avoiding judgment, criticism, all of those things, okay? So their brain is on high alert from a relational perspective. Plus, it's trying to take in and process all of the input from a learning intellectual perspective. He just came home from school. He is overdone. And I just asked him one question that was enough to be like, nope. He just needed to go be alone in his room. That's it. He just needed to go be alone in his room and decompress. That inefficient system, he had to sort it all, process it all, decide what he was throwing out, decide what he wasn't. Then he would come out of his room and he was fine. It was just that little bit after school where I was trying to show interest in him, which is loving and kind, and he wasn't ready for that questioning or relationship. At that point, he just needed space. But 2 years, you guys, I got defensive. I got like, yeah, you know what? But look how many people, okay, I just got a question. What if their stimulation, they're overstimulating like themselves with social media? Okay, well, how many adults use social media to numb out? According to data, about 99%. So if adults numb out with social media, where do we ever get the perspective that we're allowed to shame or should on our teenagers for numbing out with social media? That's not really the point here, but I get what you're saying, okay? Yes, you can teach them ways to deregulate, or to regulate and debrief. Gosh, I'm losing the words right now. To get themselves back into like a less overloaded state. Sure, but can you force that on them? No. That was, for my son, that was around like 14 to 16-ish, but he developed a little bit later. My oldest, it started earlier, like 13 to 15-ish. And I have 2 boys. For girls, it can be earlier. Their brains develop earlier. Okay, so here's what I wanted to say again about the boundary. Let me take this one step further. That doesn't work with my teenager. They keep throwing stuff at me. I need a boundary. Okay, great. I totally agree. I always say it has to start with validation and compassion. Okay? So you've said whatever you can say in the nicest way you can say it without trying to be ridiculously, inauthentically, disgustingly carnival sugar sweet. Okay? Because nobody needs that. Don't be fake. Don't be fake. And your teenager gives you the tone or is like back talking to you. Okay? And so you say to your teenager, this is what you can say. I love you and I want to hear what you have to say. Or I love you, your feelings matter to me. When I hear these specific words and phrases, so you have to be really specific. And not when you say. When you say is very conflictual and confrontational. If you want to teach your teenager to own their emotions and own healthy boundaries, which come from ownership, not projection, then do it yourself. When I hear these certain words and phrases, I feel disrespected and it's hard for me to hear you. Is there another way you could say that? Sometimes it's just that little bit of, hey, I love you. I really want to hear what you have to say. Is there another way you could say that? Sometimes that's all you need. Because otherwise, remember, teenagers feel like they're being talked at and lectured all the time. So you want to be super, super brief, really brief. Okay. Yeah. And I know that sometimes your teenager will get more mad when you say that. I understand that. So I'm getting there because they feel interrupted, and interrupting a really inefficient processing machine is enormously frustrating when they're already trying to get stuff out. I get it. They're going to get more mad and frustrated. That's fine. So here's what you do. After you say, can you try that again? Or is there another way you could say that? Or you just simply say, I love you. I want to hear what you have to say. But when I hear those certain words and phrases, I feel disrespected. It doesn't work for me to listen. I'm going to check back with you in 15 minutes or so because I really do want to hear what you have to say. And then you leave. That is a boundary, a respectful, compassionate boundary, not retaliation or shaming. And when you say 15 minutes to check back, you had better keep your word. And you check back with them in 15 minutes. Because if you don't, all you have done is shut them down and said, yeah, no, anything but happy feelings aren't welcome here. Upset feelings, those are bad, and we don't have room for those. So do you see the message that you're sending? There is no bad feelings. There's human feelings. There's no wrong feelings. There's human feelings. There's no negative feelings. There's human feelings. Please stop labeling. Stop labeling. You check back with your teenager in the 15 minutes when you said you would, and you go back to them and you say, that was probably frustrating for you, or I imagine that was frustrating for you. Be careful about assuming you know how they feel, or just say, hey, I really want to hear what you have to say. Would you like to try again? And sometimes they'll say no, and that's like, okay, I respect that. I love you, and if you decide to share, I will listen. Now, when you say I will listen, you better mean that too. Because listening does not involve, it only involves these. It doesn't involve this. Listening does not mean interrupting, correcting, judging, fixing, nothing. None of it. Listen. I don't even care how curious you are. That inefficient processing machine that's coming to you cannot handle that many interruptions, or they're already so lost in there trying to get it out, you're going to get the bear. Don't ask questions. Just listen and be active listening, which looks like this. Yeah. Oh, wow. Really? That sucks. No way. Huh. Thanks for sharing that. That's active listening. That's it. That's it. That's all. Okay? So you can set a boundary if your teenager is wildly disrespectful and doing name calling or swearing or anything, because I believe you and your teenager both deserve respect and dignity, 100%. But you need to do it in a way that says, I love you and I love what I want to hear what you're thinking and feeling. You matter to me. My boundary is when I hear, not when you say, when I hear these certain words and phrases, I feel disrespected and it's too hard for me to listen. Let's circle back. Let's check back in like 15 minutes. And they might get mad. They might get pissed off. That's fine. You can be like, I understand. But that's a boundary. But then you better keep your word and you check back in those 15 minutes and you go back to them and you say, hey, I really want to hear what you have to say. You know, I love you. I want to hear what you have to say. Affirm, affirm, affirm. Just like you did when they were a toddler. They fell down on the ground, got the black eye or the gonk on their head, and you picked them up and you said, I love you. Let's try again. And you put them back on their feet and you said, I believe in you. You got this. And even if they sat right back down on their butt and cried because they felt defeated and they didn't feel like you loved them and they believed they couldn't do it and they were mad, you love them anyway, didn't you? And you said, that's okay. Walking is hard sometimes. They're learning to walk in their brains. Okay? So, I want to say one last thing before I close. The last part about checking back is when you say that you're going to listen, you need to just listen. Okay? The last thing is, but what if they are getting really defensive? Like or blaming you for everything. I'm not going to get into that in this video. I already have a video on my YouTube channel. I also have an article on my website, alipayne.com, called This Is All Your Fault. What to do when your teenager blames you for everything. If you want help finding that, you can message me on Instagram at alipayne. I'm happy to get you the link for the article, or on my website on your phone. If you pull it over to the side a tiny bit, you'll see a little magnifying glass and you can just type in my teenager blames me or something, your teenager blames you, and the whole article will come up. So that's a further part to this particular topic, is when your teenager blames you for everything and gets really defensive about everything. So that's what I've got for you today. I hope this was helpful. I would love to hear your insights or what your takeaways are in the comments section. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe. If you're here on Insta, thank you for being here. Give me a follow. Share this with other parents and share it with your teenager. Please share this with all of my content is parent and teenager eligible. Teenagers need to start knowing and being told what's happening in their brains so they don't feel so attacked and afraid all the time. Because if you were a turtle with a half-formed shell, you'd probably be afraid of everything too. And you'd be angry and you'd be defensive out of what? Self-preservation. Self-preservation and survival. That's how you would be too. So remember, your teenager's brain is learning to walk. Just like your toddler physically learned to walk, your teenager's brain is learning to walk in intellectual and emotional functioning. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. And if it's happening, it's not about you. This is not personal. Stop making it personal and stop retaliating, needing a necessary consequence for every time your teenager snaps or has the tone with you. Because the consequence will disconnect and it's not mentoring them or supporting them to learn differently. It is shutting them down and shaming them as if they should be perfect when you and I are not. All right. I want to thank you so much for being here, and I appreciate your time, your comments, and being part of an amazing community. Thanks, everybody. I will see you next week here on Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific, as I am every time. Again, more resources are always in the link in my bio or on my website, alipayne.com. Thanks, everybody. Have an awesome day.